Thanks, Tara. Well, hello, everybody. You know, I echo everybody's sentiments today. It's, you know what, Ken Yuska is on our board, and he's on as well, and he'll say a few words as well. But, you know, I've really reflected the last kind of week on kind of what role the WCO and arts groups play in moments. And it's just really, you know, full candid. Sometimes it's hard to think about what role we do play, but I think there is a role for the arts in this time of really travesty and difficult situations. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that. And yeah, uh, Joe, great to see you. Joe Ballas, for those of you that don't know, he is and was on the First Tee board, or was and is. Joe, I don't know if you're still on, but Joe was a mentor to me when I was executive director of the First Tee. So really nice to see you, Joe, and kind of showed me the ropes in my first year, and we've remained close. So really nice to see you. And actually, I presented at South Rotary back when I think Chris Yesbeck was president of the Rotary Club back in 2015. And I remember right when I started speaking at the Sheridan, I spilled water on my pants, and nobody in the audience saw it, but I think I just voiced it. So I made sure I have no water around me in case I spill. So anyway, those anchoring moments. But yeah, really wonderful to be here. I'm in my office at the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra. Ken and I are both members of Downtown Rotary, and are really honored to be asked to speak with you today. It's been a really interesting 60 days for the arts sector, trying to figure out what to do in a pandemic. There really is no playbook for what we're all experiencing. And someone said the other day that, you know, the art space and large gatherings, we were the first to close, and will probably be the last to fully reopen. So in terms of scenario planning and strategic planning, it's certainly filled with a lot of uncertainty, but we have an incredible team. And you know, my goal today is to give you an overview of what we've done and how we've responded, and kind of what's in the future for both us and the art space. So that's kind of my goal. And I think I want to hand it over to Ken, who's been really nice to set up all of these opportunities to speak with Rotary clubs, and in particular today, South Rotary. But Ken, why don't I hand it over to you just to kind of introduce yourself and kind of share why you're involved with the WCO.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, my name is Ken Yuska. I'm a Rotarian. I belong to the other big club in town, and I've enjoyed Madison South. I particularly want to thank Tara for having us, and my neighbor, Peter Williams, because they kept me going with Madison South in their own special ways. My job is to introduce the Chamber Orchestra to you guys. This is an easy job because just about everybody in Madison has been to concerts on the square. And we're the folks that bring you concerts on the square. We are also the folks that bring you a Masterworks series, and we go and do runouts to other towns. We go to smaller events when necessary, and we've been to some pretty big events. We were the opening orchestra for the Monona Terrace. We've been doing things for 60 years. Tremendous growth has occurred, and now we have a well-staffed, well-rehearsed, and well-conducted chamber orchestra. It's a very capable orchestra. Anyway, I also want to thank Rotary, because if I hadn't been a Madison Rotarian, I wouldn't have gotten on the board for the chamber orchestra, and it's given me an opportunity to do quite a lot of fun things in my life, everywhere from giving them money to conducting one little number one time. It's been really, really good for me. But music is better than that. Music is really good for everyone. The other day I was watching TV, and they showed a group of musicians in England. and they put together one of these video concerts, but it was 2,000 people singing the Messiah. I think it was supposed to come down this Sunday, maybe it was last Sunday, but that's absolutely amazing. And the message from the man that did that was that music brings people together. It certainly brings us together here in Madison. We have huge audiences. We have people that love us, and it's a great thing. I'd like to spend a minute on the Masterwork series, which is our series in the wintertime that are done at the Overture Center Capitol Theater. They're a high quality, beautiful series of music that's intimate. It's the opposite of a concert on a square in many ways, because you're right there or you're right close to the music, whereas you can't get that close at a concert on a square. You can feel and you can just breathe every moment that with the wind players and feel the string players, and you can watch Andrew up close getting the expressions and the music out of the musicians. It's wonderful. And that's why I go to Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra. I think we are wonderful. We put on national soloists. We have a great conductor. It's a sort of boutique style music, and that's what we offer. So anyway, let me turn this back to Joe. Joe is new with us in the last less than a year, but he's a wonderful leader. He has brought together refreshments of our websites and our business model. He's got training in business and in music. He's the ideal man to run a chamber orchestra. So let me turn this back to Joe Loehnis. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. And just want to acknowledge Ken, and he's just representative of all of our board members and past board members that I've been fortunate to connect with over the last 6 months. There's a lot of passion with this organization, and that's one of the reasons of many that I elected to take this position is people are passionate about the music, they're passionate about the musicians, they're passionate about the value add that we provide for the community, not only in Concerts on the Square, but our education programs. Ken mentioned our indoor series. And that kind of drove my music career as a cellist as I started playing cello at the age of 8, and I still play today and still teach students here in Madison. So I echo everything Ken said about just the quality of the organization. Jared, just how much time do I have, and how much should I reserve for questions if there are any?
Yeah, the meeting usually goes until 1:15. We are running a little bit longer than normal. So I would say if you want to have question and answer, I would end at 1:10, which gives you about 18 minutes.
Perfect. Great. So let's see, how do I want to break this up? I think I'll start. For me, I mean, we've had a very transformational year. Before I get into how we responded to the pandemic, of the many interesting things about this year, we launched in November a 6-month rebranding strategy, a new logo and identity system, a new website, which Ken referenced. So for those of you that are familiar with the Chamber Orchestra, you'll start to see a whole different logo identity system. And we started back November for a few reasons, but nonetheless, I felt strategically, if we wanted to be ready for the next 60 years of this organization's longevity, this is our 60th anniversary, I wanted us to take the time to really evaluate and identify our core principles and our value proposition, both internally and externally, so that those could be aligned. So it was a 6-month endeavor. We had turnover in the marketing department, and we partnered with Suze Brewer of Suze Co. And Suze was the chief brand officer for Duluth Trading Company, as well as spent the last couple of years with Matt Howard at Eat Street. So she has tremendous experience overhauling a brand and kind of reconfiguring an organization's internal identity system. So that was in November. And when the pandemic hit in mid-March for our region, we were 70% to goal in terms of the website and the new brand system, the new campaign strategies So we had sort of this existential moment. Do we continue while everything is being shut down? Do we continue, or do we step back and scale back and hit a pause on this transformational exercise? And we came to the unanimous decision to forge ahead. From a business standpoint, we're 70% to completion. To pause and to start over, we potentially could have lost 70% of the work. But I think more fundamental to why we decided to forge ahead was intrinsic in the exercise was this fuel and energy to innovate and to disrupt and to carve a new path. And what we found when we evaluated what the prospects of running an arts institution through a pandemic like this one, that it would require tremendous innovation and nimbleness and continuing to stay relevant in order to survive through it. So in a way, the rebranding and where we were at in the rebranding was sort of the platform to face the pandemic head on and to find a way to continue. So our kind of guiding principles from March to today and onward is to remain nimble, continue to innovate, and to remain relevant for our community, because it can be so easy, I think, for many sectors of our economy to conserve cash, to try to not lose ground. Well, our position was we were forging a new path, so that is the path that we're going to take. And I think it's really helped fuel some of our successes. So let me walk through a little bit what we did, where we are, and then where we look to go. And I'll close with our current thinking on Concerts on the Square. So the first thing most arts organizations had to do when the pandemic hit was to cancel shows. I mean, if you are having concerts in an indoor facility for 2,000 people or 1,000 people, it's not going to happen. So I would say the first couple weeks were about calling every single stakeholder, from the patron to the sponsor to the partners to the soloists to the musicians, and tell them our plan, issue refunds. We had 80% of our patrons tell us to keep the ticket sales for donations. So that was, from a tactical standpoint, one of the first steps we had to do as a sector, is just level set with everybody who participates in these concerts what the plan is going to be. The next thing we decided to do as an organization is to figure out how we can continue to make music, how we can forge ahead and keep moving. As Kathleen Callahan, our Chief Development Officer, likes to say, and I think she's on the call, our work continues. In other words, throughout the history of arts, whether there were resources, not resources, prosperity, or challenging times, art continues. And that was one of our main goals from the beginning. So we asked our 34 core musicians to record themselves at home, to do a 3-minute personal video, talking about their experience in the pandemic, playing music, and we coined it the hashtag Coucherto, put it a play on words, the couch and the concerto, the hashtag Coucherto. And I think to date we've had 16 musicians give a private, and I'm sure many of you follow music institutions and you see videos all over on musicians trying to stay relevant, but this was a very focused effort for our patrons and for our musicians to continue to connect. And it's still going on to this day, and it's a really fun and easy way that we were able to continue to engage. Another thing we looked at was this concept of streaming. And fortunately for our organization, we've had probably 8 to 10 previously recorded concerts that some other orchestras of our size don't enjoy that archival assets that we have. So in March 27th, we streamed our very first live concert or pre-recorded concert to our patrons. We had 2,500 people from 15 countries tune in to watch us play a December 2019 performance at the new UW Music Hamel Center. And it was that concert that we launched our Musician Relief Fund, which to date has raised nearly $20,000 for our musicians who, because they're part of the gig economy, when we don't play, they don't get paid. So Kathleen and her team put together a musician relief fund to raise money for our musicians to continue to get paid during this time when they can't play and get paid for their services. So that March 27th streaming concert was the kickoff for that program, and it was a very successful program. We received PPP money. That was a big effort for arts organizations. We received enough funding to keep our staff fully staffed for the time being. We've been able to pay our musicians in addition to the Musician Relief Fund in conjunction with the PPP. Our musicians have, for the most part, made completely whole, even though we haven't played a piece of music since our Masterworks 2 concert in mid-February. So we're really proud of the fact that we're able to compensate our musicians. We streamed concerts on the Square rebroadcast, I think it was 2 Thursdays ago. So we brought a 2018 Concerts on the Square program online. We do one Pops concert each summer. This one was Don't Stop Believing was the title, with a Journey and Queen cover band called Jeans and Classics. And we bring them back periodically to play. And that was really successful. I think we had 1,500 people tune into that performance. We launched our season brochure for next season, even though we know that next year's season is not going to look the same until there's a vaccine. It's going to be hard to have a regular indoor season. But again, this notion of moving forward and getting our new brand out there, we launched our new website at about the same time as well. So it's been really interesting as some of my peers or our peers in the community and around the region have stepped back as their seasons have sunsetted because they don't have concerts on the Square to prepare for. We've remained really active, trying to remain relevant, launching the new brand and gearing up for concerts on the Square. So I would characterize what we've done is we've had a lot of vibrancy. We've had a lot of feedback. We've had over 100 donations. And Kathleen, I think we've had 30 new donations to support the Musician Relief Fund's new donors to help fuel our recovery effort. We've had those 2 streamings. We've launched the new website, the new brand. We're preparing for next season. And then obviously Concerts on the Square has been quite a beast to evaluate. And Ken mentioned it a little bit. This is our 37th year of Concerts on the Square. It started in 1984, and to date, almost 6 million people have visited downtown Madison to attend one or several concerts on the Square since inception. So you think about the economic impact and vitality of this free public event for our community. And it's been something this community has embraced. And it's something that from the very get-go, we wanted to find some way to do something for our community this summer in spite of the pandemic. So briefly, I'll kind of give you an overview of what we did and what we're hoping to do this summer, and then I'll open it up for questions. Typically, it's the last Wednesday it starts, 7 o'clock for 6 weeks. On April 9th, we changed everything we pushed it out 5 weeks to Tuesdays at 6, starting July 28th. The reason we went to Tuesday was because Jazz at 5 typically starts right at the end of Concerts on the Square, and we didn't want to overlap and cannibalize that airspace, so we wanted to make sure that we weren't taken away from another arts institution. And that was our plan. So we had decision tree after decision tree, scenario plan after scenario plan to try to figure out if this, then that, if Y, then Z, to try to figure out how we could do Concerts on the Square. When Safer at Home order went away and Dane County instituted the Forward Dane proposal, which currently we're in phase 1, and they have a goal of being in phase 3 in July. That framework has allowed us to tighten the variability of what potentially we could do for Concerts on the Square this summer. So this Thursday, we're actually gonna have another press release to share a revised plan. And tentatively, what we're looking at is postponing 4 out of 6 to 2021. We're going to hopefully link into what Vern Stenman is doing over at the Madison Mallard Stadium to do 2 drive-in concerts on the square, one in June and one in July. I'm talking with the Madison Parks Foundation right now to potentially partner with parks to provide concerts on the square at parks during either a rebroadcast or live concerts, which we're hoping to do later in the summer. So we postponed the first 4. The last 2 we're reserving for August 25th and September 1st for potentially a live concerts on the square, off the square. One of the challenges with doing something, a permitted event on the square, is the fact that there's probably 12 to 16 entry points. And even if we're in phase 3, we're only allowed 250 people. So to try to control a permitted event for 250 people on the square might be next to impossible. So we might take a 1-year hiatus from the square and look at a venue like Breeze Stevens Field, where there's one entry and exit, and you could control the crowd through social distancing and making sure we hit the numbers that the health department allows. So if that scenario works and we're in phase 3 by July, in theory, we could recruit and the help of the Madison Parks Foundation and Madison Parks to potentially simulcast the concert to various parks around town, so you would have pods of 250 people. Again, the theme of relevancy, nimbleness, and innovation. We want to be there for our community. We want to be a source of hope for people to experience a quintessential Madison summer event. So that's tentatively the plan. For I'm sure a lot of you who with your own businesses, the planning sometimes changes by the hour, especially in those kind of late March, April days where things were moving so quickly. We have an amazing team here in staff. We have 6 employees. We actually have a remote employee out in Fort Collins, Colorado that was an intern, and then she moved a couple months ago. But 7 employees with Andrew and the musicians. We all are on the same boat, going in the same direction with 100% board support, trying to remain relevant and doing something for this community this summer through concerts on the square. So like I said, the press release will probably go out this Thursday. And we hope to do something, but of course we wouldn't do anything that would jeopardize the health of our community at this time. So I guess that's enough. It's 1:07. I want to save room if there are any questions, but again, I have enjoyed being a Rotarian for 7 years. I love Madison. I've been in Madison for 7 years, and so appreciative of the work that you guys do. I try to get down to the Brat stand in the fall just to say hello. You've been a supporter of First Tee, and again, I know several South Rotarians, and just really appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. So thanks, Tara.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do we have any questions?